Of course, you know that in December of 1955, there was nationally publicized bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. Well, 5 months after the beginning of that, two co-eds from A&M were put off the bus because of sitting in the front and because they refused to give their seats to whites, and they refused to give them their money back, and they were arrested. And it was from that incident that we organized the Inter-Civic Council.
First meeting we had as an interdenominational fellowship of ministers, what we call the Ministers Alliance, met at Bethel AME. I happened to be the president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance at that time. We met at Bethel AME, and we took cognizance of the movement that had actually started on campus.
Florida A&M students was involved, and all that day I heard them talking about what had happened on the bus. So they said, we call it a mass meeting tonight at Bethel Baptist Church. And well, I had a few customers that I had to finish up, and I was a few minutes late getting there. Dean Thomas, did you remember Dean Thomas? Mm-hmm. Dean Thomas and I walked in the church house together. And by this time, a young man from Miami, Odell Jones, said they had nominated all the officers, which was 9 of us, I believe, president, vice president, treasurer, whatnot, secretary, Dr. Egan C. Williams, secretary. And Odell said, I nominate Brother Eddie Burns to be the assistant secretary. That was the last person that to be, officer that to be elected. So everybody just went to pieces. I said, now what do I know about, talking to myself, what do I know about being a doggone secretary? And something said, go ahead on, accept it. The people like you. And Reverend Steele said, Brother Barrington, will you accept that? I said, yes.
Yes, I'm one of the founders of the organization known as the Inter-Civic Council. We organized it in the basement of the Bethel AME Church.
But when the Inter-Civic Council, or the movement, I guess, started as it did in Montgomery and coming over to Tallahassee and the like, I think we can say that the forming of the Inter-Civic Council became a new construct in the social life of Black Tallahassee, and I would say of the sympathetic community, non-Black.
The Interdenominational Alliance, Dr. James Hudson was president of it. We called a meeting of leaders. We appointed a committee to go see the city manager and the manager of the bus company to see if we could get some understanding, which we did not get. We reported to a mass meeting that night, at which time they voted to come off the buses, which demanded some kind of organization.
I remember the very first day of the bus boycott in 1956, as was mentioned in the film. My brother and I, my younger brother, Clifford, and I were on our way home from school, and on this particular day, we decided to take the bus home. When the bus left Bond Community, came back through FAMU, and we were coming along Boulevard right there at the set, and students were in an uproar on both sides of the streets, yelling, get off that bus, get off that bus. And immediately we knew what had happened, that a boycott had been initiated here in Tallahassee, led by the students at Florida A&M. So as soon as the bus turned down Palmer and we got to Adams, off we came and walked the rest of the way home.
NAACP had been banded in Alabama, and we were afraid they would do the same thing in Florida. So they decided to organize a new organization called the Inter-Civic Council, and I was elected as its first president.
We have to believe, and that's what two young, beautiful FAMU students did on that Saturday, May 26, 1956. Now, no, I wasn't there. I was not an eyewitness. I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's eye. I didn't come along until later, a few years later. But it didn't matter. Miss Wilhelmina Jakes and Miss Carrie Patterson, they got sick and tired of being sick and tired. That citywide bus had whites only and colors only sections. And if the white section filled up and if the white people needed a seat, the colors had to yield their seat for the whites. And if the colored section was full, they had to stand up. So they got sick and tired of being sick and tired and having to follow that. So one day, they decided to pay their fare, and as the late Gerald Inslee put it in the Democrat article, they plopped down in the whites only section and sat right next to one of our good white sisters. Now, I can't tell whether the sister had a problem with that, but the bus driver sure did. He had such a problem that he drove to a gas station. They didn't have cell phones in '56. He drove to a gas station and called the police, and they were promptly arrested. They were charged with the potential for inciting a riot because of where they sat. But these sisters, these young FAMU graduates, which I am a graduate, a proud graduate of Florida A&M University, these young ladies were woke. They were woke before woke was cool. They were woke before woke was even a thing. They were woke because they knew what was going to happen, and they were ready for it. Because, you know, the bus boycott was already going on in Montgomery. So they were doing it in Tallahassee. They were woke and they were ready. And I'm sure they were aware of what could possibly happen when they did this thing. But it didn't stop them from being disruptors, agitators. We have any disruptors and agitators in the room? All right, Cecile, go ahead and raise your hand. I want to identify y'all. This is not the Johns Commission, but we want to identify you disruptors and agitators. If you're a disruptor and agitator, just wave your hand, because I'm waving mine. That's right. You helped us after we get in trouble for disrupting, and you disrupt too. Dr. King stated that for evil to succeed, all it needs is for good men or women to do nothing. Nothing. Stay woke now. He's also said that nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Those words right there just resonate as we work in our communities, and we see this even now. But these ladies did something by getting themselves arrested. This woke up the whole community, but most especially Florida A&M. Florida A&M started this bus boycott under the leadership of their SGA president. The students circulated petitions, and according to the Tallahassee Democrat, 2,300 students showed up. They showed up. In 1956, 2,300 students showed up. Can we get 2,300 people to show up for a good cause now? I'm looking at this room, and thank you all for being here. But this place should be packed. This because of what happened. But we've gotten comfortable. We're going to talk about that. We've gotten comfortable because life is good. But if we're not careful, and if we don't stay woke, it could change in the flickering of an eye. So the bus boycott began on May 28, 1956, and lasted until December 22nd, 1956. Now, in my mind's eye, that's what the preachers say. I know some preachers in the room. In my mind's eye, y'all say, I can see that empty bus rattling through campus around the set or whatever was going on in 56. Empty, because people were walking and they had their own carpools and they refused to ride the bus because they were protesting. If we can get a couple of people to just agree to do the same thing at the same time, we'll make progress. But we seem to have a little problem even today doing that. So I admire and I applaud the efforts of those students. That's why it's important to keep young people involved, because they're not afraid. We're afraid because we don't want to lose our jobs. We don't want to lose our housing. We don't want to lose a lot of things. We're afraid. These young people don't have all that stuff. So they're not afraid of losing what they don't have.
The point I'm trying to make is that all these ethnic studies, African American studies programs didn't start from the top. They were not created by college or university administrators. They were created by students who came out of the movement, who again demanded to be taught their neighborhood histories, the histories of their grandparents. I could go on and on. I will tell just one more story and then we'll get right into the panel. Many of you know the name of Howard Thurman, known as a spiritual advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King, to Reverend James Lawson, to many others. Howard Thurman was the first African-American dean of Marsh College, and many people gave him a lot of accolades. He deserved all those accolades. But he said, you know, when I think of who taught me to be a Christian liberation theologian, I had great education. You know, he knew Mordecai Johnson, he knew all the great religious leaders, theologians of that time. But he always said, Reverend Thurman always said, I credit my grandmother, who had been a slave in Madison County, as being my greatest educator. She never learned how to read or write. She would have me read the Bible to her growing up as a young boy, but she always forbade me. I was never allowed to read the Pauline epistles. Why not? Because that was the only part of the Bible that her master in Madison would allow to be read on the plantation.